right, ladies and gentlemen, it is your favorite Dark Sorcerer here. And today I'd like to discuss tests and trials. Things with you that a lot of you haven't endured, you may not even be tested or put underneath a trial. So today I thought I would bring it up and kind of break things down for you. Over the last few months, I've really been delving further into the demonic, the necromantic rites and rituals, really communing with the Tower of Atropy. Okay? From Zazazel, the Buried King, all the way down to Seshira, the Witch of the Vile Depths. Okay? And lately, a trial was put forth. Something that I've taken on personally. Not out of ego, not out of popularity, but more of the fact that I wanted to do this because I like testing myself. I like to push myself beyond. Okay? I love pushing myself beyond within the human and supernatural limits. Okay? Now, those of you who follow some friends of mine, people that I associate with, but also look up to, like Behemoth X, otherwise known as Joseph Nunn, Curtis Joseph, S. Ben Cayenne, S. Connolly Reeser, Asenath Mason, her husband Bill Dubendek, Curtis, what's his name there? Edgar Cabal, and a few others. Okay, they put a lot of meditations out there. They put a lot of works when it comes to necromancy and spirituality, especially that in the forms of mantras and meditative, not just ends, I guess you can call them, but also mantras. And I've been really doing this. I found this great channel on YouTube, and I really delved into the demonic side of things. So when this opportunity came up under a trial, a test, it really got my blood going, my heart beating, because of the fact that going a full month straight, plus 3 days. Okay, so instead of 31 days, you're dealing with 34 days total of fasting. Okay, I'm talking not just fasting. The Catholic, if you go into the JCI Bibles, they talk about the Daniel's fast. Most of these JCI churches and organizations, these institutions, utilize this type of fasting, which means that there's a little cheat that you can do. Okay, if you're not comfortable utilizing, say, no food, no substance for an entire month, like their Jesu Christi did, okay, supposedly did out of the Book of Moses, or not Moses, but the Gospels rather, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Then you can always go with the Catholic version, which is a very extreme fasting. Okay. Now, what do I mean by extreme fasting? Okay. For 31 nights, or meditation in a certain location, like say a cemetery, a rundown church, coliseum, stuff like that, connecting the energies and the currents to your specific altar room, but more than that, there are things that you can do. Okay. For an example, no meats, no eggs, no milk, stuff like that. Okay. 15 minutes, about 20 minutes of meditation daily for 31 days. Okay. This is the Black Fast. This is what is known as a Black Fast. Okay. And it's a Catholic tradition. The old school form of meditation that goes back hundreds of years. Okay. It's nothing new. They just simply have shied away from it these days. Unless they're Roman Catholics. And then they choose to meditate and to sit out and, walk with nature and stuff like that. But the main Catholic body, not so much. So when you compare the Black Fast from the Daniel's Fast. The Daniel's Fast, you're able to eat anything of the ground. This means potatoes, berries, fruits, and vegetables, stuff like that. But again, no meats, no eggs, nothing of protein or stuff like substance in that manner. Not even milk itself. Okay. Now, what's ironic about this is that they have this cheat where you can eat all of this stuff. Now, how is that actually testing yourself? How is that pushing yourself beyond spiritually? To be fair, it's not. So, while I was doing research on this Black Fast, which is a Catholic extreme fasting rites, they eat once a day, always after dark, just after sunset. They don't eat meats. They don't eat things like eggs and stuff like that. And they definitely don't drink the milk. And this is done for an entire month. Now, it's ironic that when I found out that it needs to be started on a full moon, or a new moon, rather, I went into astrological affairs, the lunar cycles for this upcoming month, and I found out that this coming Friday is not only a new moon, but there's also an eclipse at 1900 hours. Okay? 1900 hours an eclipse on the same night. It's a perfect time to start fasting. It's a perfect time for the next week to not only start fasting, but to go the full month on top of that, doing this and going 2.1 miles one direction to a spiritual location like a graveyard, an abandoned church, maybe, depending on what you're into. If you're into demonology, you can always go out into the woods. 2.1 miles, if you're walking, can lead you into the woods, or say, for example, a cemetery, or an abandoned church or whatever, because there's so many of them around. So you're able to go to these places and sit there for like 20 minutes and meditate, do chanting, spiritual summonings and invocations, bringing the herbs that you're going to need, like, say, witchbane, hellebore, white oleander, things like, maybe graveyard dirt, brimstone powder, stuff like that. Things of death, poison, things that you can burn or mix together into a brew. Have bring forth a virgin parchment paper with a quill pen, blood ink, things that you can do to write out the pact, and petition the spirits that you want to work with. So it's a great time to begin, and you do this every night, and around the same time every night for an entire month. Very, very spectacular. Not only is it a test to see how dedicated and committed you are to this cause, this just cause, but at the same time, you're putting yourself through this trial, this state of intense trial, this endurance factor, this factor of extreme duress where you're taking in less substance. You're getting rid of the things that most workout experts would call junk foods or fatty junk, junk fat or whatever they call it these days. Okay, and you look at some of these public magicians, like say E.A. Koetting. I've seen a lot of these videos where people are saying, "Well, look how sick he is. Look how disheveled he is. He must not be doing good, or maybe he's ill." A lot of rumors flying about him, and it's like, he could be going through a test or a trial at the moment because of the fact that this is what happens. You end up getting thinner. You lose your bulk of muscle and substance that you normally would take in and ingest by eating 3 to 5 meals a day. Okay? You take, say for an example, you look at Jean-Claude Van Damme, or you look at Dolph Lundgren, you look at Sylvester Stallone, you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, okay? Now you look at what happens when you don't work out, okay? Arnold Schwarzenegger, he went into government, politics, and he lost a lot of that mass that he had. You look at Wesley Snipes, from the Blade movies. He had all that bulk, all that muscle. And then when he went to jail and then came back, he didn't have that muscle. He was slender. He was more thinner. And the same thing with Dolph Lundgren. And, as you get older, you start losing that stuff. It's no more realistic, right, for you. Well, what about spiritualists? What about those who are completely dedicated to the spiritual realm? Doesn't matter if it's the shadow realms, the forgotten realms, hell or hells, depending if you're into Buddhism, or the Christian version of hell, demonology, stuff like that. All of this stuff plays a huge part in fasting. Tests and trials, even, because of the duress you put your body under. You may look slender. You may look almost like you're coming down with, like, say, I don't know, cancer or something. Some form of cold or flu. But in reality, you're weakening your physical body and becoming closer to death. This is why I like necromancy so much, is because when you commune to death, with death, and you commune with spirits, you really become more harmonized to those currents, especially for what is classified as death divination, or Da'ath magics, the essence, things that the tree of death, you're aligning yourself with those currents, and you're getting to know those currents, and before long you're communing with these beings, and you're seeing them on a fully manifested level. Even more interesting is last night I actually applied this. I started applying it. I hadn't eaten much all day. So I ate my official last meal for the next month last night. You know, not just not eating that, not stopping eating, but more of the fact that I've stopped eating meats, I've stopped eating eggs, I've stopped drinking milk, and I've stopped, basically I'm applying the black fast. Started last night. And then I packed up my stuff and I walked 2.1 miles. 2.1 miles, okay, to the cemetery. And I walked around the cemetery chanting. I finally found this one area which I keep being led back to, okay, which tells me there's something about this one stone, this one section that I'm supposed to be at, that I'm connected to, or is trying to reach out to me. I don't know yet. But this is the fourth time I've walked there, and each time I found myself sitting right there. So last night I went there and I sat down. I put my scepter, my walking stick, my staff in my lap, you know, and I faced the walkway that leads out of this section. And I just sat there in Indian style. I closed my eyes, started focusing on my breathing. I still had my headphones in because I was listening to Demonic Ends all the way from my apartment there. And I kept seeing these flashes while I was sitting there. And when I opened my eyes, I noticed the moon, the waxing moon, becoming more bright. And every so often, I'd see a flash of purple. This flash of purple was lightning. Literally, just a quick little couple flashes, and it was gone. But it was always in that one section, just a little bit to my right. So if you got 12 o'clock, it was at my 1 o'clock. Very, very fascinating. And I never took my headphones out, not once. And I kept meditating, and I did this for about 20 minutes because that's what was required. Each night is to go there and meditate, chant, and commune and petition these spirits for 30 days. But there's a lot more to it, though, when you talk in necromantic rites and stuff. So becoming a lick, becoming a necromancer, becoming a grave lord, for an example. There's a lot to this process that I'm going to be undertaking over the next month. And this was just the first stage. So, anyways, I got up, the wind had picked up, the moon was getting brighter. There was still so many stars in the sky, even though that it was predicted that we were supposed to have a thunderstorm right after midnight. Or a little bit after midnight, which we never did, by the way. Meteorologist, you're stupid as all fuck. But, okay, you guys get it right probably maybe 25% of the time. But anyways, I sat there, like I said, for a good 20 minutes. The moon had become bright, the wind had picked up, I started noticing the flashing of purple light, and off in the distance, you can hear a little bit of rumbling, but that was most likely the interstate. And I know there was a lot of cars going back and forth, hitting the interstate, taking the side roads, across from the cemetery and stuff like that. So, I mean, it was no big deal. I actually enjoyed it. It's very, very powerful. And then I got up, like I said, and I started walking home. I never took out my headphones. Hey, Stefan, what's going on, brother? So I never, I didn't take out my headphones. I was still listening to these demonic ends all the way home. And I was just so focused on it, I didn't even realize that there was a lot of things going on, things that were interfering with my way of getting home. A guy jackknifing his pickup truck with a U-Haul trailer, the little pull behinds, as he's trying to back it in. He's blocking off the cars coming around the corner, and they have to stop and get pissed off because they can't get by. You got cars coming the other direction, have to take the fucking hill, and it's funny as all hell. But I mean, I just stood there and just was patient and just continued talking and chanting while I was just sitting there holding my scepter. After about 10, 15 minutes, this moron finally got his vehicle in, and I just continued walking. Saw two dogs that literally kept their distance from me. That was pretty interesting because normally dogs and cats, animals, they love being near me. But this particular night, no, they stayed right away from me. It's like they knew something was going on. So I came home. I sat out on the bench, was looking at the stars for right up until meridian. And then I spent the next hour in my altar room, calling forth Zazazel, calling forth and petitioning Zeshira, the witch of the vile depths, the hag of the pit, the witches of the depths, and the entire column, the entire tower of spirits that are ruled by the very king. And then I came out for the next hour or so and played video games. Some Sniper Elite. Love that. Love that game because it's a great motivator. With all the frustrations, you actually get to shoot people legally, on video games. So, of course, I love the graphics where you shoot the guy and, it shows the testicle going, or the bullet going through the brain. It's kind of cool. And then I went to bed, and I literally slept like the dead. I mean, it was spectacular. It's been a long time since I slept like that. And so I got up a little while ago and was just checking my messages and on Facebook, social media, and stuff like that. Watched a couple of videos, a couple of music videos, and then I got up and went into my altar room and turned on those demonic ends again. Lit the candles, the incense, and had my headphones in. And I was sitting there in the chair, just relaxing, just completely relaxed, focusing my attention outward and watching the drift, the spiral of the void, almost like a spider's web factor, but in one of those 3D type things, the funnels, kind of like water going down into a funnel. And then I made out a couple faces. One was a skeleton with a crown and a scepter. Another one, then it went from here to facing this direction. But the eyes were different. More like something you see out of Buddha. Saw some markings, some symbols. The equal armed cross, white. A white one, by the way. Very, very interesting, I have to say. Because the equal armed cross is a balance factor. It is good versus evil, light versus day, but it's also about the four soul types. And could be added on from there into the spider web effect. So again, you're seeing the spider effect. You know, things dealing with the arachnids. And a while ago, I actually discussed the spider mother, arachne from Greek, or that of the creator of humans from the Native American traditions. So again, here we are seeing this whole spider thing coming back into effect. It's amazing how it comes right back, right? So, anyways, the reason it comes, so the color white is purity. It's not just celestial in nature, but when you contemplate that there are going to the gods of this world are going to be pissed because you're going beyond them and you're going out into the expanse. You're going out into becoming a god. And you see how they can interfere with your life, trying to direct your attention or afflicting you in some way. White could be seen as celestial. It could be seen as purity, whereas everything in the background is just that darkness. But through the light, you see the darkness. But at the same time, if you go into the darkness, you see the light. Again, balance. So, like I said, I petition them to come forth again, linking it, the graveyard, to my altar. Making a pact, making my intentions known, not just there, but here as well. Looking at alternative graveyards, perhaps, even just in case. But to see what entails and what unfolds throughout these trials is something that is unique. The last trial I had, physical trial, was about 10 years ago when I was living in Tucson, Arizona. I ended up living on the streets for like 14 days. Very little food, very little water. The last thing I truly remember was yelling out in the dead of night. Ironically, it was the hours of meridian before waking up in a hospital. Apparently, I succeeded because that test, that trial ended and came to a close, and I was able to come home. The one before that, the one after that, took me into Texas. Before those two was Cincinnati, Ohio, Beebe, Indiana, and so forth. Been all the way down into North Carolina, I've been all over this country in over 20 years. Had many trials and tests. Things where you've had to fight, things where you had to learn to control your self, push beyond the veil, learn to let go, accept things even. Working with demons, working with spirits, working with the Blighton. These beings are so powerful that they are willing to help you and to guide you into where you need to be, but you got to be willing to let them test you. You got to show them that you're not afraid, and to say, "Hey, I'm ready to step out into the fold, onto that plate, jump into the frying pan, to be touched by hellfire." Is that all you got to say? You are mouthy. And my familiars down here being mouthy all of a sudden since I mentioned hellfire. But hey, Um, but my point is this: you're going to be tested, not just from the physical world. The physical world is meant to limit you. You look at what's going on right now in your communities, through your jobs or lack of job. You look at your ability to provide for your families or lack of. Maybe the relationships that you're in is toxic and you're ready to move on. You know, it could even be something as simple as spirituality. It's meant for you to make you grow spiritually, physically, even within that spiritual domain. For you ready to take that next step. There's so many different possibilities that just fit neatly into tests and trials that you need to be aware of. It's not just performing the rites or studying these rites. It's not just learning the history and mythology of the world, because you see the same thing rewritten and regurgitated over 2,500 years, going all the way back to Sanskrit. You're seeing where these beings, the state of duality between good and evil, light and dark, have always been at each other's throats. We see this today within the communities. Social limiting, social control, herd conformity, slavery of just another sort. Those with power abusing that power and not being held accountable. But yet somebody who's innocent gets put on trial and spends 40 years in prison for a crime they didn't commit. The world is truly upside down. And perhaps Armageddon is coming. Maybe the end of days has kicked off for a new region. Who knows? But the thing you got to take into consideration is, what are you willing to do for your own unique practices? Are you willing to be tried by your peers? Are you willing to go through a trial like that of Hercules? Are you willing to face the odds like that of Osiris and Isis against Ra? Perhaps Zeus versus Hades? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Are you willing to do what is necessary? Are you willing to evolve? Pick yourself up out of those slums, those subdivisions, the herd conformity and the limitations of the slaver, the slavers, the government, the legal system. Are you willing to rise above and beyond and delve into hell itself? Are you willing to become the hated, the wraith, the feared being that you're meant to be, the individual? That's something that only you can answer for yourself. That's up to you. Me, I'm going for it because there's nothing in this world that interests me. I'm more interested in what's in the other realms, the other dimensions. I'm more interested in learning the spiritual things. You consider, I'm in my 40s. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've done my time, as Korn would say. I've fought battles that weren't my own. But trials come in many forms. Tests come in many forms. but it's how you handle each one of these that defines you as a practitioner. And only you can discern who and what you're going to be. Humble yourself. Learn to let go of ego and limitations. Let your mind go and become one with the forces of nature. Have a good one, and I'll keep you up to date on this trial. I'll keep you up to date on the tests that occur